the developmental committee on April 16th to order. Roll call, please.
Member Krajewski?
Here.
Member Covert? Here. Member Garcia?
Here.
Member Ozog?
Here.
Member Rutledge?
Here.
Chair Tornatori?
Here, and we have a quorum. Nothing under chairman's remarks. Do we have any public comment?
No.
Okay, we got approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of August 2nd.
Second.
Additions, corrections, or deletions? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? In the minutes are approved. Moving on to regulatory, I'll entertain a motion to approve DCO 45-22, ordinance zoning 2233. CHO officers recommendation to approve a variation for a reduce the corner yard setback from 30 feet to 19.5 for a pergola. A motion and a second. Any questions, discussions? Anyone? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our budget presentation. Jim, you are on.
All right, well, thank you for the opportunity to present our budget. The Building and Zoning Department. Can I have the next slide, please? So this is just kind of a recap of a little bit of information about the department, kind of our mission. We're basically just broken down into 3 different divisions: zoning and planning, building, and environmental. Environmental handles some of our cool DuPage. They have an IEPA delegation. The important thing on this slide is kind of restating that we're an enterprise fund. We're not part of the general fund, so what we make is, what we operate on. We've got 29 people on the staff. They're permit technicians, code enforcement, zoning and planning staff, building inspectors, permit technicians, and our finance staff. The next slide, please. So just kind of a quick touch on each of the individual departments. The Building and Zoning Department is, like I said, broken up into 3 divisions. The building division is really responsible for the issuing of the building permits. We do the plan review, we do with the zoning review and drainage review, health department review. We're kind of act as a liaison to outside agencies like the health departments, local fire districts. We schedule all the inspections. Zoning and planning, they do a lot. They oversee all of the ZBA, all the zoning entitlements. They handle the CMAP land use, the LTA grants. They represent the county at TIF district meetings across the county. They handle our CRS, our FEMA CRS program. They run the adjudication program and are responsible for code enforcement. Our environmental division has an IEPA non-hazardous waste inspection delegation agreement. So they respond to they respond to complaints for open burning, things like that. That would be land only. They don't do water or air. They also do routine inspections at places like DuPage transfer stations. That's one of their delegation responsibilities. They handle all the cool DuPage and environmental programs that the county has. If I could have the next slide. This is kind of a recap of where we have been for the last few years. I always like to put this slide in here because it generally shows a lot of the trends and how we're doing. This is through the end of July. So you can see permitting, we're right where we would normally expect to be. Same thing, the call center, it's actually a little high. And a lot of that is probably attributed to the new software. We've got a lot of people calling and trying to figure out how to use it. We went online with everything. And it's been a lot to work through for the public. But everything else is right where you would expect it to be at this point in the year. So we think we're in really good, position.
What's all the FOIA requests?
We get a ton of FOIA
Right, I'm
requests.
saying, I can see that, but I mean, what are they people asking for?
Eileen. So Eileen's our FOIA officer.
A lot of permit history, a lot of septic layouts, things like that. If they're gonna do work or get a permit, a lot of stuff like that, but a lot of history, people purchasing homes.
So if people want to do work, we can't readily just give that to them. They have to FOIA if they're looking to do work and that's something.
Well, they'll have to FOIA for the document.
Right.
So they have the layout, so they can show it to the the people who work at, that fix the septic or whatever needs to be done, they have the layout.
A lot of the stuff is proprietary, so it's the product of professional engineers and architects.
If it's proprietary, then we wouldn't honor it.
We may not be able to honor some of it, correct. That's why they have to go through FOIA. But there's some things that they can look at, but we can't hand out to them.
But we can't give it to them even on a FOIA request, though, right?
We can't give it to them on FOIA request. They may be able to come in and review it, but we can't give it to
Well, I
them.
was just wondering if there's
Are they
something.
able to get the permission from the architect or the engineer?
They could potentially, yes.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if there's FOIA requests on here that we give people stuff that we could just by putting it out there, eliminate all the time you guys spend on FOIAs.
I think the majority of what they're asking for needs to come through FOIA, the way I understand it. Yeah, because a lot of it's
Why do you need
redacted.
to come through FOIA?
Well,
But I mean, if they allowed to get it through a FOIA, they should be allowed, I mean, anybody can get it, right?
The one thing I'd say is each and every FOIA is reviewed by the state's attorney's office. And so a lot of them we prepare, they sign off and we send it. But your point's well made because all of these FOIAs are the same thing. I'd like to see the plans. I want to know the history. Give me a copy of the permit that was done in 1968. And we do that readily. But the question is, can we move it from a FOIA to just an information request? And that's something we can work with the state attorney's office to see if they're comfortable moving that.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it's stuff that if it's not allowed, then of course, we don't give it, we don't put it out publicly. But if stuff that's allowed, we're gonna give it to them anyways on a FOIA, like that's, like you said, an old permit. We just put the permits online, let them find it. I mean, that would get rid of all the FOIA stuff.
Well, putting a permit online has a lot of personal information on the permit, so
But
we have, so we end up going through redacting it.
Okay,
So
that's
we
fine.
would have to redact it
For their work.
to post it.
They had to do that with all the stuff in the recorder's office, because they used to have all that personal information on it, and they had a lot redacted all. It's out there now, people go and look it up. They just won't have people's information on it, social security number, whatever, okay?
For every municipality, I mean, this is basically what I did. This is what they're doing too. This is not unusual. It's not fun, but it's not unusual.
It's very.
I think the reason why it may stand out here versus maybe some experience in municipalities is that the county by almost 45,000 people is larger than any municipality that's located in the county. So we have a lot more permits, a lot more activity that's going on in the unincorporated area that we might otherwise see in the municipality. So that's why the numbers are a little higher for us, not a little lot higher than probably what we experience in the municipality.
Okay, Jim, go ahead.
Can we have the next slide, please? It's just a bit of a recap of some of the special projects and the things that, that are going on right now, that we're going to continue working on. January 31st was a really big time for us. We went online, so we went away from paper to an entirely online electronic submittal program. And that was gigantic. It was completely reevaluating the entire business operations, the entire office, from every person and what they did. Because we essentially had to go through, look at what we do, and then reassign the work and figure out where it's going to go. So that was really huge. And it was done in conjunction with DOT, Stormwater and Public Works. Stormwater were already on the Acela platform. DOT, Public Works, and B&Z all went on as well. So now we're all in the same thing. Our software programs are all talking to each other. I mean, it's been everything. And Marla's here. She's our financial analyst. She can attest to just changes in the new software. For example, everything is credit card now, or electronic check, which we didn't have before. So she's had to reorganize everything that happens in the financial area to handle the volume of what we're seeing. Before, the majority of our stuff, customers sitting at the desk were paying with checks. And now it's all electronic. So it's been completely different. The environmental division's been very busy. They worked with the Illinois Recycling Task Force to work on a contamination video that's being used throughout the state. They upped their outreach programs, and they're doing a waste hauling study right now that'll carry into next year to see if there's an opportunity for all the townships to try and see if they can select one waste hauler for each township, or one for all of them, depending on how it works out. Currently, there are 3 townships that have their own waste hauler: Naperville, Downers Grove, and Lisle. And what that does is, right now, you can go across the railroad tracks to the subdivision there and see a different hauler every day on the street. And it's a lot of truck traffic, it's a lot of pollution, it's a lot of road wear. And then trying to see if there's a way to,
Plowing in the winter time.
trying to, streamline that. The planning division's been doing a lot with the clean and lean. We've had some really big projects this year. We had a house come down that I think we've been chasing for what, Paul, over 10 years?
Yes.
And it was a giant house and it was a blight on the community. There was graffiti. It was being broken into. Kids were getting in and running on the roof, and the police were out there constantly. Homeowner was very reluctant, so we had to go through the court system for months. Got that taken care of. So kind of expanding the adjudication hearing program and trying to expand clean and lean a little bit more. Paul's working actively with the CMAP on the LTA grant for Gary Avenue and Lake Street up in the north center of the county. They're trying to see if they're working with Roselle, Bloomingdale, Hanover Park.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of partners that are all working together. So if I could have the next slide, please. This is kind of a revenue projection, just kind of what we hope to see coming in the future. We think, permitting has been very solid. We've got some projects that we anticipate coming in that are bigger projects for next year. Should be late this fall into early next spring. So they'll should come to fruition at that point. Operating grant, the state has agreed to pay us a little bit more because we're actually inspecting more sites than we used to. So that's gone up a little bit. The service fees, that's based on Duquesne Transfer Station. Elevator inspections, a lot of these we think are going to go up quite a bit based on just the productivity that we're seeing out of the new software. It is streamlining the way we will operate. Like, for example, if you had the elevator program where somebody failed, it automatically will generate into a violation notice, and there's fees and fines that can go with that if they don't fix it. There's the inspection fees that are automatically assessed. So we think a lot of that stuff is going to really improve. The bottom line, the general fund transfer, that's for the environmental issues. Normally that is treated in the general fund, and Marla has to do budget transfers out of a line in the general fund in order to make payments for environmental issues. The finance department thought it would be easier to move that general fund ask into our budget so it can be expensed out of our budget. That way we don't have to take an additional budget transfer. We can simply just pay the bills when they come in. So that makes our number look a lot higher than what it previously has been. So
Why are bond forfeitures so much?
The bond forfeiture program is part of this new software, and it's going to be automated. So before, what would happen is literally as time would allow, we would go through and look at expired permits, usually over the winter or when things were slow. Now the system is automated, so when your permit is ready to expire, you'll be notified through an email at 60 days that you need to get an inspection or you're gonna, be expired. You'll be notified in 30 days. If you still don't, your bond's gonna automatically expire and your bond is
There's a
forfeited.
lot of stuff going on now with supply chain issues and people not getting their permits, and that's a revenue line item. So we're expecting we're gonna take a bunch of money from people because they haven't been able to get their permit done on a timely basis, but there's been all kinds of issues with, I've talked to people can't get their windows for 8 months, their tile that they ordered.
But they could
But
contact
all
you.
they have to do is contact us.
Right.
But they're getting, so they get 180 days before the permit expires, so you get 6
And then we're
months.
gonna grant them the extension.
And then you grant them an
And if they
extension.
didn't contact us to get the extension that we're gonna grant them anyways, then we're gonna take their money from them.
And we agree, what usually happens is if they contact us, we get the bond back. We don't take them all. We're just.
We're anticipating we're gonna take
Quite a few.
$200,000
Yeah.
when we're only at 70. So I think we need to be a little more proactive in working with people that don't necessarily understand that, but I would like to not see that number very high.
Okay. Do that. Can I have the next slide, please? So this is, again, just a recap of personnel, commodities, contractual, and capital. The reason for the commodities and the contractual lines being higher, again, that's the environmental money that was infused from the general fund. And then they're substantially higher because of those. The capital projection is for 3 vehicles. DOT is responsible for fleet management. They've notified us that we need to purchase 2 in 2023. and one in 2024, but advised that we should budget for all three of them now. With the supply chain issues, if we're able to get them, they would like to just get them. Because they don't know what it's gonna look like by 2024. So in all likelihood, they'll order the first two vehicles shortly after the budget's approved in December. And then depending on what it looks like, normally when that happens, we generally don't see a vehicle till May or June anyway. But this year, it could be even later. And if it looks like it's gonna be later, then they just wanna go ahead and order the next one. We won't pay for it till it gets here, but if it got here in a timely fashion, we have the money prepared to do it.
Any idea whether any electrical vehicles or hybrid vehicles?
I don't know that, I don't believe they've gotten any electrical vehicles anticipated for us. We have had hybrids in the past, so I'd have to see what they're looking at for those. I don't know. I'd have to double check. They actually manage the fleet. We just tell them, they tell us when we're gonna need to get a new one.
So the transfer from the general fund, that's a first time thing Jeff wants to have this year?
Yeah, I can talk about that. I mean, it's
No, I just don't talk, but that was like first time, right?
This is the first time.
But, because that was like 400 and some thousand, right?
Yeah.
But the contractual is only going up for environmental, like 250,000. So is the rest of that general fund transfer to help subsidize the budget? the
Some of
personnel?
it's in commodities as well, like some purchases that they'll be making. So they both go up as a result of
Yeah,
it.
but then we still got more money, so the rest of it goes into personnel budget, right?
Right.
And so then the question, I guess, is as an enterprise fund, isn't our fees supposed to cover our costs?
It does, but we also carry a cash balance to make sure we can cover all of our costs. So
I'm just looking at
That's
it
what
like
you're
this,
asking.
it looks like we're using some of that general fund transfer.
The general fund transfer is very specific in environmental, what it covers, scarce contract, items like that. So it's very specific and it's, document shredding.
Well, I understand, but the contractual only went up $250,000. And we're transferring 435,000 or whatever that number was into the. from
The
general
question
fund.
is, did their contractual go down for what they need for their budget? That's the question is, overall, but there's no way, though, the needs for that 435,000 environmental are set. Environmental committee sets that. And so there's specific goals of that money. And it's not supplementing the.
So there was money in there
building
last
itself.
year, maybe that we just.
And my guess is contractual went down because of the permitting program, most likely came out.
And then to my question, because it was getting to our enterprise fund and the fees, because in the past, I know our commercial really is really subsidized the residential portion. Is that still the case that, the cost of what we charge residents is really not our cost, it's a lot more,
yes,
but we've pushed that off onto the businesses.
that's kind of the only way we can do it. I can't charge
$500
for a shed permit, so we have to push that off. It is, that's way.
Very common.
No, I know, but it's an enterprise fund, it's supposed to cover your costs, except we just sort of have the businesses pay for the cost of the residential.
So, and just so I understand it, the money that we're paying for the environmental, because we're an enterprise fund and we've always paid we make what we pay, that money that we're paying out of our fund is money that's being transferred into our account. It's a pass-through. It's a why, okay.
It's revenue neutral to us. It's just a way for us to be able to encumber it to make payments.
Okay.
The next slide is our last one. So this is just kind of a recap of some of the big budgeting items we've had for the year. The $150,000 that is going towards IT services. It's really about our managed services program that we're running with Acela. We paid extra. If you recall, there was a budget transfer at the end of, I think, last year to be able to add some extra money in there. Managed services is a group that meets with our staff every 2 weeks. For a while, they were meeting almost daily when we went live. And they're an expansion beyond the team that did the developments and a little more than what you would get out of just routine maintenance. So they meet with us regularly. When we've got issues, they fix them instantly and then implement them into the system. The regular maintenance people really only implement quarterly. So, when you got a problem, you can't wait till the next quarter's rollout. You want it fixed. And these guys are great and they work really well with our staff. Indirect cost is the cost that we're charged back, $231,000. I mentioned previously the budget, the $90,000 for the vehicles. And And then we would like to add an additional headcount based on all of the work that we're seeing, the permit trending that we're at. We're actually higher than we were before the recession of '07, and we're doing it with fewer people. And looking at this new permitting software and breaking down all of the duties, we're realizing we don't have enough people to do all of the individual tasks. So
enough to get a good permit tax.
we think so. That's what the starting fee is for the others. And then, well, I mean, that's I guess the posted salary, but we add benefits on top of that. So it's a little bit higher, but yeah, 45 is what we've been getting the other techs with. So that was part of the wage adjustment that happened in January. They went up
I
to
just want to
45.
call.
Yeah. I hope we can get one at 45. So, yeah, if that's all right with you guys, we'd like to.
Jim, have you filled that position?
We've not. We'd like to, actually, we'd love to do it now rather than wait till the end of the year, but we put it into the budget for next year. We did budget for one last year. We created an
Probably
assistant
have a salary
supervisor
ability
position.
to do it now anyway, right? Because we've had open positions. So
We
there's-
do.
I assume you're down, so you could probably, right? Could they do that, Nick?
So we can absolutely move forward with it now. It would just be changing the head count, and if that's the will of the committee, we can work with finance to add that to the budget in 2022, advertise, get that going, then that will become we'll modify his 23 budget accordingly to make that as if it's a filled position now. So if that's the will of the committee.
Quick question on the, so the Excella is not making the work more easier for the employees that are here. It's actually like divided the work up so that you need more employees. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically. We were kind of on the verge of needing more employees anyway, just because of the volume of the work that we're doing. We've gone up, gosh, I think, well, in that previous slide, you can see that the permits have gone up every year. I think in 2011, when I came back, we were in the upper 2000s, like 2,900 permits. We're hitting 4,000 now. So we went from 32 people down to 24 during intercession. So we've been
Oh, wow.
scratching back.
And I think it's important to
Wow.
realize that your permitting volume is higher than what it was before the recession, but your head count is still much lower.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
That's
you're
a
doing
problem,
much more with less, so.
So we're working everybody pretty hard.
Yeah, I definitely in favor of
Yeah.
posting for the job
That would
now.
be great.
Yeah,
We'd love to do
same.
that. We've got
Well,
two
by the time you get
vacancies
it,
right
you-
now. Pretty close to.
December anyway.
Is that the will of the committee then to move forward now?
Yes.
so. I think so.
Yeah, I just had a quick question for the salary. If you needed a cushion, would they have the cushion to adjust it if they can't?
Sure,
find
they
anything?
can't get somebody. else.
We absolutely, we added in the 2022, we will we'll do a market study for it, and then we'll make the adjustment we need to hire somebody.
And we've got 3 other brand new techs, so we can, if they're higher than that, I'll double check and make sure, but we can make sure they're all comparable.
Or just make all 4 of them if you decide to go to 40, 50.
We can do that too. Yeah, we've actually gone through, I think, between retirement, people being promoted, people leaving, and being refilled, about 16 different people in my department this year, since June of last year.
Ouch.
Yeah, last 12 months.
And there's only 29.
There's only 29 of us, and then you threw a new software on top of it, so.
You have
Some retirement.
35-year employees retiring. That's a big hit for a
Big
department.
hit.
And it's hard to replace that knowledge, institutional knowledge.
Our office supervisor, our chief inspector, retired in May and June. So it's been rough.
Yeah, that's hard to keep it up. Keep everything running smoothly when you're constantly training new
Yeah.
people. So, yeah, no, it's hard.
That's all I've got.
Okay, any further questions of Jim?
Could I add one thing about the budget that I think the committee needs to consider? So one of our most successful programs we started is a neighborhood revitalization at Clean and Lane. I think it's benefited properties all over the county. I mean, I've never seen a program where all the neighbors come up and, give all the people tearing down houses, cookies and food and lunch. I mean, it's the best program. So it was originally funded back in 2017 with an IDA grant of $250,000. I mean, we have done, I think the total properties we've done, how many properties, Paul, have we done with Clean and Lane over the years? Probably 25 or something like that. Hugely successful. That pot of money is out for IDA grants. Is there a will? What I'm thinking, I'm assuming the committee would like that program to continue to move forward, right? I mean, it's really a powerful tool, and we really stretch it far because Jim and Paul use our internal resources to clean up property or tear down houses. So we can tear down a house for $10,000, $12,000 because we're using internal resources to do it. So if you, as a committee, want that to move forward, I would suggest that we examine possibilities for maybe the general fund. I know Brian and Liz and I met last week. There are excess money in 2022 that I'm going to be presenting in a special call next week. I would recommend that maybe we put $250,000 of that money and transfer it to building and zoning to be the seed for the next couple of years for the clean and lean. And I think it's a program well worth the money, but I wanted to see I mean, conversely, we can add money in the general fund in 2023, but it gets a little bit clunky because some of these cases proceed over multiple years. And I would much prefer to give building and zoning, say $250,000 out of 2022 money to be earmarked within their budget for the clean and lean program. Hopefully it'll last for several years and we can come back then and maybe 2024 or 5 and ask for more money.
I have a couple of questions because this program emanated from me going to a breakout session at the Illinois Housing Council about whatever it was 7 or 8 years ago when they had the program, and it wasn't available then to the counties and we were able to get it. Can we, Paul, I know you didn't we talk to Ida again about resubmitting within the last year or two?
Yeah, we have the
See if there was
ability.
any more money.
We have the ability to resubmit. I just changed their programs a little bit. They concentrated more on housing rather than cleaning up housing.
Right.
But I think there is a program that will be in 2023 that will replicate we can give you some money from IDA with a match. Typically it's 20 to 25% to deal with code enforcement and demolishing of housing. So I think there's a program that's going to be out there and we'll certainly go after that grant.
Okay, and then my second question was, I thought the essence of the clean and lean program is whatever we spent to clean it up, we were going to get back through the lean.
Correct.
Which would mean if we get $250,000, shouldn't we have gotten, if it cost us $250,000, shouldn't we have gotten that back at some point so that
The answer to the question is you're absolutely right. The dilemma that we have right now is we have 2 of our biggest clean and lean projects that really started this whole thing. Jim talked about a little bit earlier, 15,000 square foot house, 12 to 15,000 square foot house that we have money expended on that we haven't collected that money back. We haven't been able to.
So do we have like $250,000 in accounts receivable, so to speak?
We will have after these 2 cases, these 2 zoning cases that we have in circuit court, where they're legal matters, but we have identified certainly recouping our cost and then also getting additional fees and fines. That's what we're debating in the circuit court right now. But that money has not come back in yet, nor are we able to lien the properties yet because the 2 court cases are still going on. Eventually we'll get that money back.
Will that money go into the clean and lean pot?
It'll go right into it, correct.
Okay.
Do we get reimbursed for the legal fees also, or?
We put in for our expenses. We also put in, not necessarily for our legal fees, but for the fees that are due us based on the state statute. There are specific requirements in the state statute that give us so much money per every day that a violation exists relative to the building code, and for every week that a violation exists per the zoning code. In some of these cases, those fees and fines are over in the millions of dollars. Those are the things that we are still working on, or not when I say working on, those are still subject of lawsuits in the circuit court. But we will, irrespective of those fees and fines, we hope to be able to get our cost reimbursed to us, or at the very least, lien the property for those costs.
And the fees and fines, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know you guys been around cases, typically at the end of the day, when there's a settlement that does occur, a lot of those fees and fines are negotiated out.
Okay.
So that's something to keep in mind.
But the key is that for every dollar out as part of the clean and lean program, it should be expensed back in. But the reason that we don't have that regenerated yet is because we haven't been able to collect it nor lien the property because the court cases that are still pending.
And that's fine, as long as as long as it's accounted for. And again, that 250,000 that we got from Ida, however many years ago, was always to jumpstart this program, which had been kind of dormant for many, many years. So I am 1,000% behind assessing
And our thought
250,000.
process would
This is
be-
a program that is a win-win across the board.
We have a sub-account within building and zoning that all of this is tracked and managed with that. It's so that the 250,000, 200, whatever it is, you know, as far as the matching money that you need for the future IDA, this is used for the matching money. As far as, you know, any fees, fines, or liens that come back, this goes in there. So we're hoping that maybe it's a, you know, self-propagating for the program moving forward. And like I said, hugely successful. Can't say enough good information about this, but we've reached a point where we're out of money for it. Maybe for the short term, maybe for the long term, but it would be good to have an infusion for this. And I think that a good use of the 2022 surplus might be a small infusion of this to make it viable for several years.
And well, we've got an IDA board meeting Friday, so I'll kick the tires on it with some people down there and see where we're at with that.
One of the things that's important to note too is that we are hesitating on moving forward with taking a couple of cases to court because we're not able to show the court that we have the funds to be able to pay for it. That's another reason why we're a little
Let's get
concerned
that
about
money in, yeah. let's
making
get-
sure that money's in there.
That's what I was
Absolutely.
gonna say. I mean, we give them 250,000 to start the program, but a year from now, if you wind up having $500,000 in liens
Right,
on
we might,
4
we
properties,
might have more than that.
call us up right away. I mean, because it's not like we're gonna expend it, we're gonna get it back.
Yeah, you get it back eventually.
You know, we have a lot of money in reserve, just come and say,
Right.
we're out of it again, we need another 100,000 because we got one we want to go after. Eventually, it'll start rolling off these cases.
And the reality is the 250 that we supposedly don't have anymore wasn't ours to start with. We got it from somewhere else, so we haven't lost any
Definitely don't
money.
want to keep a public safety problem keep going. So-
And the other thing on those liens is that at a certain point when those liens get usually over $100,000, that's when we, through the state attorney's office, start foreclosing on those liens to get those
We're
properties.
eventually gonna get our money, so I would say if you got 4 of them out there that's tied up 500,000, just let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll give you some more to move forward on some other shit.
Yes, yes.
How many are in the pipeline right now, or what do you see coming?
Well, we've got 6 properties right now that that we've sent out what are called clean and lien letters on. They're new ones, and those won't be the ones that we take to the circuit court to use the clean lien statute to get the court to allow us to clean the property or demo the property. Not all of them are demos, some of them are cleaning up the
Yeah.
properties. So we have 6 in the pipeline. We have 2 cases that are currently active in circuit court. So for a total of 8, really.
It's just a real quick little bit of history. This started at IDA through something called the Abandoned Property Program, APP. So they were giving these monies for houses that were abandoned in the middle of a neighborhood because people were underwater on their mortgages. And then we kind of developed a program which kicked some of that money out toward clean and lean. So with Paul and Nick and Jim putting together the prospectus, if you will, IDA took that money in one program and kind of expanded it out into what we're doing. So, yeah, Mary.
Chairman, does this go back to like 08, 09?
I got on the IDA board in 2013. I want to say this was like 2014 or 15, right? So 7 or 8 years ago.
4 or 5 years down the road from when.
We
Yeah.
started the program using the clean and lien statute sort of in an ad hoc way. And then the chairman funded us with 50,000. And that was just, I mean, it was sort of a
Seed money.
seed money.
Yeah.
And then through Chair Tornatori, we were able to find this program that dramatically increased the funding. The match was a little bit higher, but we started really from an ad hoc to an official program now. We want to keep that going. It's a sort of a self-sustaining program now.
One other quick question, where was the very large house?
Unincorporated Naperville.
And is that resolved? Is everything?
The house has been
The house
demolished
is
by the
gone.
county.
Yeah.
The property has been cleaned and restored back to turf grass. And we are currently in litigation over fees and fines and reimbursement to the county.
I will tell you, the program
Thank
has
you.
far more benefits than just simply cleaning up a property. Can't tell you how many times that, you know, a lot of times maybe you have somebody who is maybe suffering some mental health issues, maybe they have hoarding issues. There's a whole suite of services that we bring to bear
Yeah.
on a lot of these property owners. And I mean, we've gone so far as reunite them with family members to come in and help. I mean, there's a lot of positives for it. A lot of them, you know, when we're done, they're thankful, they sell it and go into like a managed care home. So there's a lot of benefits for the program.
Okay, so I think if you got our direction.
$250 million out of 2022 surplus, it'll be the seed money, and then building and zoning, you guys have to account for it.
Yeah, we don't want to lose any time because we don't have $250,000 in the budget for it. That's probably money well spent. Any other questions of Jim? Thanks, Jim, everyone for the budget presentation. Any old business, new business? Hearing none, saying none, without objection or adjourn. Thank you.